Welcome to Chat with Matt. Thank you for taking the time out to join us. I'm joined by Ron Greenberg. Ron is a sales and marketing expert, and we're going to get some great insights from Ron today around the importance of that sales and marketing interconnect. Ron, how are you?
I'm doing well, Matt. Thanks very much. How about you? How are you doing?
Yeah, doing really well. And you're coming to us today from New York.
I am, New York City, Lower Manhattan.
Wonderful. It's great to have you join me for this. So give me a sense then, Ron. What's going on the East Coast of the US? What's happening in the business environment at the moment?
Yeah, it's really interesting, Matt, how far we've come over the past couple of months. I remain very optimistic about the business climate. And back in March, when I think about it, things just shut down and, pipelines dried up and organizations were, regrouping. And now there's been a lot of activity starting to emerge. People have adapted to virtual working and digital sales and marketing. And I see some momentum building as not only established companies are beginning to figure this out, but there are some new companies. I'm involved in some discussions with startups too about now that virtual delivery is a reality and people are used to it, there are ways to deliver value to customers that actually are beneficial, in some ways more so than face-to-face. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, it's moved entirely into the virtual world since early March. And that's been a fascinating, and first chat with Matt we recorded, that we left it with the word optimism. What we're actually seeing in our marketplace is there's some nervousness, no question about that, but there's also huge amounts of optimism of what can now be done as we start to move through the pandemic and move into call it business as usual. It's not quite there yet, and whatever business as usual is going to be, we don't know. But it's great to hear that from your side, you're seeing those green shoots of recovery as well.
It is all virtual. There is no face-to-face. It doesn't exist. But it's not only the East Coast of the U.S., but it's across the U.S. and also international companies that are entering Japan. And I lived in Japan for a couple of years, so it remains near and dear to my heart. And everyone knows how important relationships and face-to-face meetings have always been, but virtual is a reality, and Japanese businesses are adapting to that way of doing business. So it is not just the East Coast, it's worldwide that this is the new way of doing business. And again, as much as I would love to, I don't necessarily have to get on a plane and go to have a relationship and have a business meeting and move things forward and deliver value. So there are good things about it. And no question, there was some nervousness underlying all of this, and people are still uncertain about what lies ahead. But at the same time, there's this strong wave now of emergence from the worst and optimism about what lies ahead.
Absolutely. And I'm talking about adapting when do we start to prospect? When do we start to look at that top of the funnel stuff? And I know one area of expertise for you is around that sales and marketing interconnect. And surely now, probably more so than ever, the sales and marketing interconnect and alignment is really important. Can you give me a bit more on that from your perspective?
Yeah, Matt, I absolutely agree with that. It was always important from my perspective as a former chief marketing officer and working in large corporations. Linkage with the sales team was always critical because we're focused on creating pipeline and delivering value to our customers. So the reality is we had to work together in order to make sure everything we said was orchestrated and integrated and aligned.
Yeah.
And now that everybody, sales and marketing, have to deliver virtually and digitally, this race towards digital that occurred, early mid-March, it's even more important because we can't afford to waste time, can't afford to waste money, and we can't afford to aggravate our customers with disjointed messaging. It's critically important that all of this is planned up front because there's no other way to do it. You have to get in the room together. And it's not just partnership, and it's not just working in parallel fashion. It's working in true integrated, orchestrated fashion. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. So I think it's a great thing. I still think a lot of companies struggle with what that means, from getting definitions aligned of what opportunities are, who the customers are, and what's valuable to them, so that outside in view, not the inside out view.
Yeah.
And then their journey toward decision making, which isn't necessarily linear, so I don't mean to suggest that, but you need to know the stages of the decision making process, and then think about what are the touch points, whether it's a conversation virtually or digital content that you need to deliver. And it's worthwhile having the teams get together and thinking that through and saying, you'll do this, here's what we have that can work, and here's the things we need to shelve. And here's the content that we need to develop, and make sure that, we used to call it a wall test. You put it up all on the wall, on a virtual wall today, and say, does this make sense? Is this a conversation? And is this value driven? Are we actually thinking about what the customer's going through? Do we have empathy for their current situation? And do we understand what they value in order to do their jobs most effectively and deliver value to their customers? So these are all important things that we need to keep in mind when we're thinking about sales and marketing alignment. I worry that that's become such a toss away phrase that people don't understand the real value and the real work that is necessary in order to come out with something that's truly effective. And I think this is where we've moved to, from working virtually to working virtually in an excellent fashion. And that's what we want to do, is achieve excellence and deliver value.
Okay, and we're creating some development around that sales and marketing interconnect that's going to come out within the next few weeks. What one tip would you give them that starts them to connect better?
Yeah, I would say, choose a customer or the short list, even the definition of what your most valuable accounts are. So especially now when you're thinking about, where do we direct our efforts? We know that some of our clients on our list are not as active right at the moment as they had been. So where do we focus our time and effort? And just start with that agreement and say, this is our short list. Okay. These are the customers that we're going to start with. And let's start by then diving deep and mapping who those decision makers are within the account and how we're going to address them. Because then you can scale. It doesn't always have to remain a short list. You can make it then your top 10, your top 50, your top 100, your top 1,000. But the same sort of methodical process of identifying who these top accounts are and having agreement between sales and marketing is an important place to start.
Great, perfect. And actually that then's got a great synergy with value selling, on the basis that if you start there with a targeted vertical sector or whatever, and you think about the outcomes at an organizational level and also at a buyer level,
right,
then you can be very specific in the messaging that you create.
Yeah, and I think the sales and marketing teams, when they come together in this discussion, need to have the same KPIs. So there shouldn't be a marketing set and a sales set. You should be thinking about, how do I deliver value and win business? The measurement should be the same. The definition of what an opportunity is, the conversion rates, the revenue, the increases, deal size. There's studies that prove that sales and marketing alignment can lead to a 32% increase in year-over-year revenue growth. This comes from the Aberdeen group. There's a group called Marketing Profs that shows that sales and marketing alignment leads to 38% higher win rates. So these are no small numbers to scoff at. These are really important. And this is the result of surveys of many different companies.
Well, these are stats not to be ignored. If you can get a third better win rate and a third better revenue number, it's got to be worth a conversation, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
Good. Well, just in the short time we got left, I'm sure you're not working 24 hours a day. What keeps you busy outside of work?
I continue to struggle learning Japanese. I decided recently to get more serious about it. So I'm actually taking Japanese lessons, learning kanji, which is the Chinese characters as applied to Japanese language. Now that the weather is great, I'm out on my bike riding along the Hudson River from Battery Park up to the George Washington Bridge, which can be very beautiful in the morning.
It's very nice.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
it's great. And it's interesting. There are virtual museum tours, things like that, and I'm big into all different types of music. So,
who's your favorite band, Ron?
The Beatles. You may have heard of them.
I've heard of them.
Yeah. And I'm also into funk music.
Well, that's quite diverse. That's quite diverse. Well, look, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Ron. Thank you for your time. Please go to mentorgroup.co.uk, follow us on LinkedIn, and we look forward to welcoming you back very soon to the next chat with Matt. Thank you very much.